Hi, beautiful people. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are doing fantastic wherever you are in the world. Well, it seems as though people are in an uproar because Kail Lowry did an interview with Gypsy Rose on a podcast, Barely Famous, which we will be getting into. And as you may have seen in the thumbnail, I have Without a Crystal Ball, and I will explain how she fits into all this later on down the line. So let's get into it. Kail Lowry, which some may remember from Teen Mom, interviews Gypsy Rose for her podcast Barely Famous. If you have any negative feelings about Kail, I understand. I'm not here to change your mind and I respect your feelings. What I took away from this podcast is I am more convinced now that Gypsy is wearing a fake belly. And I will show you clips and you can tell me what you think, or maybe I'm just losing it. First of all, she did the we listen but we don't judge trend, and this is how that went.
We listen and we don't judge. You're first.
Okay, so I'm first. So I used a baby bottle until I was an adult.
We all have trauma. We listen and we don't judge. I also thought about using my mom's meds to self-medicate. Relatable?
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
We listen and we don't judge.
So I also used to steal my mom's pain medication to get high.
Okay. We listen and we don't judge. I also lied to CPS as a child. We listen and we don't judge.
I wrote a book while I was in prison.
We listen and we don't judge. I also ran away to my boyfriend's house when I was young. So we listen and we don't judge.
To find out more, you can purchase my book wherever books are sold.
This was the teaser that Kail Lowry actually put on her Instagram and TikTok for an upcoming interview with Gypsy Rose on a Barely Famous podcast.
She would give me what we call a cocktail. And so that would be a mixture of oxycodone and Xanax together. And it put me in a state of numbness. And I liked being there.
Why now? Why are we writing a book now?
This is simply a book of hope.
Your truth is your truth. And I feel like at the end of the day, he can't dispute what your perception of any of this was.
Because I would be in trouble for walking even inside the house.
Oh, wow.
To the ones that are like, well, you knew you could walk the whole time. Why don't you just get up and run away? But they don't understand the mental prison that is abuse. I didn't realize that she would be branded a villain after that.
Is that something that is exclusive to this book?
It is. It's not something that I really tell everybody or talk about. I never submitted, I guess you can say, fully to the idea that this was going to be my life. I think I romanticized the idea of, being my man's savior just as much as he was mine.
Right.
So it was like the Beauty and the Beast syndrome.
Based on what I read in this book was that he was already having all types of very, very violent fantasies prior to even meeting you.
Correct. In my opinion, whether it was conscious or not, I feel like maybe we manipulated each other.
Did anybody else catch in the beginning when Gypsy Rose nearly misspeak and nearly said Vicodin, but went ahead and said Xanax? But anyway, if you guys want to watch the podcast in its entirety, Straight Out of Context on YouTube has the entire podcast on her channel. I will have a link down in the description box if you guys are interested. When I was watching this podcast, I became so aware of how Gypsy seemed to have been, to me, adjusting her belly. And if you have been pregnant at this stage of pregnancy, and her being in her third trimester, and the way she was handling her belly was weird. Now, I've just inserted clips. As I said, the entire podcast will be on Straight Out of Context YouTube channel, which will be listed in my description box. But just pay attention to how she handles her belly.
You in a way that, people will hopefully want to go buy the book.
I think that, obviously we wanted, and we meaning me and my co-authors, wanted to convey a sense of urgency.
Okay.
Because a lot of people can't put themselves in the mindset of where I was at with the abuse and how desperate I felt. So having a statement like she was going to cut my can't put themselves in the mindset of where I was at with the abuse and how convey a sense of urgency.
Okay.
Because a lot of people can't put themselves in the mindset of where I was at with the abuse and how convey a sense of urgency.
Okay.
Because a lot of people can't put themselves in the mindset of where I was at with the abuse and how you are in a state of being so afraid. Logic goes out the window.
Right. Up until my late 20s, I thought I could change a man. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly. I think I romanticized the idea of, being never do that. That was my other personality, but I would never let him do that. So I got back together with him. We don't have to talk to each other. We haven't talked to each other in a while. He reaches out every once in a while.
For what?
Now, the last clip that I showed, this is where I was completely sold that she is probably wearing a fake belly. And I could be absolutely and completely wrong. And I know everybody's pregnancy is different. But even it seemed as though she kept trying to adjust her belly. Now, look, I have been pregnant 6 times. And even when I was at my lowest weight, I was absolutely fit with my last child. I weighed 160 pounds at the start of my pregnancy. By the time I gave birth, I was 185. I could not push my belly back to even bend down and tie my shoelace. Here Gypsy is between 33 to 35 weeks, and she is able, or seemingly, pushing her tummy back to cross her legs. To me, that is what it seemed like she did.
We don't have to talk to each other. We haven't talked to each other in a while. He reaches out every.
This podcast was recorded on December 8th, and then on December 9th, she was spotted at the courthouse. And look at how she walks and goes up those stairs with such ease. I have never seen a woman that is this far in their pregnancy, ready to pop, walk with such ease. And if you have been pregnant, I'm sure you must know what I'm talking about. But like I said, I could be wrong. Let me know your thoughts. The link to this entire podcast is listed down in my description box. Gypsy states that she wrote this book not to villainize her mom, yet that is all she does. And she talks such crap about Nicholas, which honestly angered me. And get this, you guys, she said that they manipulated each other.
So you meet Nick online later in 2012 after the second escape.
Correct.
Attempt, the second escape attempt. And you connected on a Christian dating site?
Yes.
How did you know about like a dating site?
I seen a commercial for it on TV.
The things that I learned in this book about Nick was insane.
Right.
Based on what I read in this book was that he was already having all types of very, very violent fantasies prior to even meeting you. Did you ever think he was going to do something to you?
I mean, of course, later on in the relationship, but I still was in the mindset like, well, this person loves me. This person is giving me attention. Like, this person loves me for me.
You can look past the violence at that point.
I could look past it. Or change him. I think I romanticized the idea of, being my man's savior just as much as he was mine.
Right.
So it was like the Beauty and the Beast syndrome. I wish that we could have a normal relationship is what I would call it.
Yeah. But that never happened.
No.
Some of the ideas that he brought to you about how to unalive your mom were twisted.
And all of that is factual evidence, and it's in Facebook messages. There is actual proof that these things were said. Whether or not those case files are released to the public, I'm not sure, but there is a paper trail.
So did that come up in court, like in trial?
It did. It was discussed.
Sure.
The prosecutor definitely did. Not a lot of people know about that stuff because what is in a confidential case file, because he is still going through his appeals, so there is a portion of case files that are not out to the public.
Okay.
So, that's why I think a lot of people are just like, okay, it's one-sided. And then, in my opinion, Whether it was conscious or not, I feel like maybe we manipulated each other. It was mutual.
I have not read this book that Gypsy just released, and as Kail says, that in the book it states that Nick gave Gypsy ideas on how to get rid of her mom. And for Gypsy to say that there's facts and evidence for this, I must be missing something. If anyone has a copy of this book of Gypsy's and would like to share it, I would really appreciate it. And now she is saying that they manipulated each other. So why is Nick still incarcerated? And you, Gypsy, are here roaming around with the rest of society. Is this Gypsy's way of taking accountability by continuing to villainize her own mother and blame Nicholas Golderjohn? And I hope she paid attention to the stickers on Kail's laptop. And those words, killer and chaos, were burning right through to her soul, because she is, in my opinion, a killer, and she is absolute chaos. Apparently, in her book, Gypsy says that she went under anesthesia 100 times. Really? There was so much BS in this podcast. Once again, the link to the podcast in its entirety is listed in my description box, so please go and check it out. Now, if Kail does see this, please, Kail, retract your offer of helping Gypsy to get a podcast. She needs to go away completely. She is a menace. She is such a liar, and the last thing she needs is a platform. There was so much lies and BS spread by Gypsy once again in that podcast. And like I said, I was so angry because all she did was justify why she had her mum killed. Now, let's move on to how Without a Crystal Ball fits into all this. She posted on her Instagram, of course, Kail Lowry would endorse this with a trash bin. Two narcissists in an interview. Which one will win? So, Miss Without a Crystal Ball wants everyone to go and unfollow Kail Lowry and boycott her trash podcast. Well, this is no surprise because Katie Joy has history with Kail. Katie Joy despises Kail. How would Without a Crystal Ball like it if someone does that to her? Why shouldn't people boycott Without a Crystal Ball? Because for 5 years, she was so complicit and condoned their bullshit. She was the one that stood firm and in support of Gypsy and the Blanchards. When Gypsy came out of prison, she was the one to say, "It's your day, Queen. Slay." She got Christie to give a statement to the public that she was a family friend. Any information that the tabloids came out with that the Blanchards did not like, Without a Crystal Ball would use her large platform to debunk their stories. She was attacking Flawless Nina from the get-go. This is something I found on Twitter yesterday. And all credit goes to EKCPEOPLESUCK. Her link will be down in my description box. Please go and check her out. Hi Katie, not sure if you saw this, but a user named Radiant Brit made a video about you and your defense of Gypsy Rose and her family. I even said this in your private Instagram DM, to which Without a Crystal Ball responds, "I'm not going to stop supporting a family that has proven over and over again that they have not lied. I'm not going to be bullied to not support and be kind to a trauma survivor and a victim of severe childhood abuse. If that makes me evil, I'll be evil to them. But standing with victims, no matter how messy their stories, is what my platform is built upon." So Katie Joy went above and beyond for Gypsy and the Blanchards until they withheld information from her. And she threw a tantrum and she turned on them until they consoled her and took her back into the fold. And then a month later, she was kicked out of the fold, but this time for good. She lowered herself and she turned to Bree, who was Gypsy's biggest supporter and not well liked at all. She turned to her for help to get back into the fold, and unfortunately, Bree couldn't even help her. Without a Crystal Ball realized that they were done with her. She turned on them for the second time. At this point, Without a Crystal Ball needed allies, and she turned to the anti-Gypsy community, who received her with open arms. And since then, she has spoken ill of every creator that showed her grace when Gypsy and the Blanchards got rid of her. Without a Crystal Ball claims that she is this well-sourced journalist. Her words, not mine. Why didn't she do her due diligence when she got involved with the Blanchards? rather than now say that she was manipulated and they are the worst people ever. People knew the Blanchards and Gypsy were lying grifters, but she chose, without a crystal ball, chose to believe them and take them at their word, and all for clout. So why shouldn't she be boycotted? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. That's it for now. Have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend. Please be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And don't forget, make good memories. Bye, guys.